This message has arrived to you not by accident, but because your consciousness has crossed a threshold that only a rare fraction of humanity, perhaps 3% in an entire lifetime, ever approaches. In this moment, you are not simply consuming words or watching a sequence of images. You are being initiated into a current of awareness that most human beings will never touch in decades of searching, if at all. The fact that these words vibrate within you means you have successfully moved through invisible gateways of limitation that hold countless souls in cycles of unconscious repetition. Every trial you have endured, every moment of despair that you have risen above, every instant where you chose growth rather than clinging to comfort. None of these were random occurrences. They were checkpoints of consciousness, subtle examinations arranged by the quantum field to see whether you were ready for what is opening before you now. And the very fact that you stand here with this strange recognition pulsing in your being proves that you have passed every hidden test. The universe does not waste advanced transmissions of awareness on minds that are unprepared. There is a cosmic algorithm, a selection process based on resonance synchronicity, and the invisible guidance of intuition that ensures only those whose higher self has orchestrated readiness will receive what you are receiving in this instant. Your entire journey has been guided toward this precise intersection because the integration awaiting you will permanently alter the way you interact with reality itself. You may have already noticed the shifts occurring, time bending strangely, sometimes stretching endlessly, sometimes collapsing into flashes of compressed moments. People respond to you in new ways, sensing a frequency within you even when you have changed nothing on the surface. Synchronicities spill into your life with uncanny precision. These are not coincidences. They are confirmation signals that your field of awareness is tuning into a completely new frequency of operation. Your soul has long since outgrown the entry-level teachings of manifestation, transcended the elementary meditations, exhausted the shallow techniques that once sustained you. Now your inner being demands access to protocols of higher consciousness methods so advanced that many teachers cannot speak of them because they themselves have not climbed to this altitude of development. The recognition rising in you is not simply an intellectual curiosity. It is a cellular awakening, your very DNA resonating in acknowledgement of your evolutionary readiness. This capacity to embody multidimensional perception without fragmenting your ability to function within ordinary consensus reality is the hallmark of true advanced development. And yet, what makes this moment uniquely powerful is that you are nearing a point of no return. Once consciousness expands, it cannot contract. Once the veil is pierced, it cannot be resewn. You cannot unlearn what is about to be known. You cannot return to the easy prisons of limitation that once disguised themselves as safety. This awakening is permanent, irreversible, because truth once recognized cannot be forgotten. The timing is not an accident, for humanity itself is undergoing a collective upgrade in consciousness, and you are among the first wave of souls designed to anchor this frequency in the collective field. Your personal transformation is not merely personal. It serves the larger blueprint of species evolution. Through countless lifetimes, your awareness has been sculpted, refined, tested, and tempered for this precise unveiling. Every lesson, every scar of wisdom, every luminous fragment of memory has been building toward this moment in which ordinary human perception yields to conscious collaboration with cosmic intelligence. You are ready now, though, in truth, you have always been ready. What has changed is that you have reached the critical point where readiness is no longer hidden but consciously usable. Think of those sudden bursts of insight that come from nowhere, those flashes of understanding that feel ancient and intimate even though you have never read them in any book. This is not random inspiration. It is evidence of your capacity to access the Akashic field, the vast quantum archive containing all knowledge across all dimensions and timelines. Your dreams lately may have carried weight and brilliance unlike anything before, visions of beings of radiant light offering instruction, journeys through crystalline cities, downloads of complex codes that your waking mind can scarcely hold. These are not mere symbols. They are literal classrooms of higher dimensions where your consciousness now travels during sleep, because you have earned access to advanced interdimensional education. Even the material world reflects your shift as technology responds to you in impossible ways. A phone ringing the instant you think of someone, a screen offering exactly the data you need without your seeking electronics bending subtly to your emotional state. This is not anomaly, but demonstration. Your field has reached coherence powerful enough to influence electromagnetic reality itself. Time, too, has yielded to your development. Hours pass like minutes when you are immersed in flow, while minutes elongate into expansive eternities when awareness stretches open. What you are experiencing is nothing less than the beginning of living in what Einstein once gestured toward as the eternal, now the timeless dimension where advanced consciousness naturally resides. You are now entering the timeless dimension where all possibilities exist simultaneously. And in this state, your intuition has transcended the limits of mere instinct and evolved into a profound, direct knowing about situations, people, and outcomes. You sense the energy of an individual before a single word is spoken. You perceive the trajectory of choices before they unfold into results, and you pick up subtle signals about events even before they manifest in the fabric of consensus reality, because your consciousness has gained the sensitivity to read quantum information directly from the field before it collapses into physical form. This is why people respond differently to your presence without you deliberately altering how you engage, some finding themselves compelled to share secrets and confessions with you, unprompted, while others grow uneasy in your company without knowing why. And children or animals approach you with unexplainable trust, because your frequency has evolved into a signature that naturally creates a sanctuary for authentic expression, while simultaneously stirring unconscious recognition in those not yet prepared for higher awareness. You have also begun experiencing what mystics describe as dimensional bleeds, those surreal moments when you perceive overlapping layers of reality, catching multiple perspectives at once, or sensing presences that belong not to the physical plane, but to subtler domains of intelligence, and instead of discarding these as mere imagination, you now understand them as evidence of your expanded perceptual capacity, proof that you are accessing strata of existence beyond the reach of ordinary minds. Your relationship with your own thoughts has likewise transformed, for you no longer drown in the stream of mental chatter, but have cultivated the ability to observe thoughts as passing ripples within awareness while simultaneously recognizing the vast space from which they arise, a metacognitive awakening that few human beings ever achieve. And yet, the greatest validation of your development is the dawning recognition that consciousness and reality are in constant dynamic dialogue, that your inner states influence external conditions with precision, that your directed attention sculpts what materializes around you, and that the world itself responds intelligently to the tone and quality of your awareness not as wishful projection, but as the direct quantum mechanics of manifestation at work. And when you reflect on the years of confusion, the cycles of doubt, the long phases when your practices seemed to yield no fruit, you realize those intervals were not mistakes, but rigorous training grounds, each hardship strengthening your awareness so it could navigate expanded perceptual territories without collapsing into instability. Each silence consolidating your nervous system so it could sustain greater voltage of perception without fragmenting. The practices that once felt profound but eventually fell flat were not failures. They were preparatory stages like arithmetic to calculus, the scaffolding that allowed you to master each level of awareness until you became ready for the more advanced protocols of quantum consciousness. Even the painful relationships that tested your limits were not punishments of karma, but carefully designed training sessions to sharpen your emotional resilience and psychological flexibility, so that when your field began to vibrate at higher frequencies, you would not be destabilized by the unconscious projections of others but could remain centered amidst powerful, energetic exchanges. The periods of isolation that seemed like deserts of abandonment were in truth integration chambers where your system rewired itself neurologically to anchor new perceptual abilities without overwhelming you, and even your skepticism and questioning of spiritual concepts was part of your development, because each moment of doubt forced you to refine discernment to separate authentic expansion from fantasy, to cultivate the precision necessary to walk in advanced states without losing clarity. Your endless curiosity about consciousness, reality, and existence was never just intellectual interest. It was your soul rehearsing, preparing you for the advanced understanding you are now ready to embody every book that called to you, every teacher who resonated, every practice that felt authentic, contributing to the architecture of knowledge that would allow you to receive these principles with stability and grace. The waiting periods when nothing seemed to happen were the most important of all, for they were calibration phases during which your consciousness was fine-tuned to the exact frequency required to hold expanded awareness while still functioning in the shared world. And this process cannot be rushed because integration must be complete and irreversible. You chose this incarnation deliberately aware that you would reach this developmental summit during humanity's collective awakening, volunteering to be part of the first wave, anchoring these advanced frequencies into the planetary grid so that future generations could embody them naturally without the arduous journey you endured. This is why your path felt thorough, why no shortcuts were allowed, why you were forced to harvest real wisdom instead of clinging to superficial techniques, because what you are integrating now is not only personal ascension but a living template of consciousness that will influence the trajectory of human evolution for centuries to come, serving as a resonance field through which countless souls will one day awaken with greater ease, because you walked the demanding path first, and in this recognition lies the profound truth. Your awakening is not for you alone, but for the unfolding of a planetary destiny. Something extraordinary is happening in your energy field right now as these vibrations move through the hidden corridors of your being, resonating at depths far beyond intellectual grasp, and you can feel it as that subtle yet unmistakable shift in consciousness. Like doors, long sealed within you, are finally opening to reveal the vast interior of your own awareness. This is not metaphor, this is literal neuroplasticity in motion. Your brain weaving new neural pathways in real time so it can hold and process the architecture of multidimensional perception, while the current flowing through you is nothing less than consciousness itself, actualizing its readiness to operate at frequencies most humans will never touch, not by effort or force, but as the natural flowering of evolutionary potential that has been waiting for the exact developmental moment to emerge safely and sustainably. And what makes this transition so significant is not merely the access to new capacities or heightened perception, but the initiation into conscious participation in the evolution of reality itself, because at this level you are no longer a passive observer or even a skillful manifester. You are entering the domain of what mystics call the cosmic co-creator, an awareness refined enough to collaborate directly with the intelligence that governs universal manifestation, where reality ceases to be something that happens to you, or something you attempt to bend with intention, and instead becomes a living process you co-shape through the very quality of your consciousness. Your awareness itself becomes an active agent in the expression of cosmic intelligence through the physical universe, and this requires what quantum scientists describe as coherent complexity, the ability of consciousness to sustain multiple dimensional perspectives without fragmenting, without collapsing into confusion. And the fact that you are here, feeling clarity as you engage these truths, proves that you have already developed this rare and precious coherence. The deeper understanding is that such a threshold is not something achieved through strain or discipline, but a natural unfolding that happens when awareness reaches sufficient intricacy and balance. So you did not force your way into advanced consciousness, but instead gradually removed the blocks that had long obscured your evolutionary potential. And now, as this recognition sinks deeper, your very relationship with existence is transforming for you. Are beginning to sense that you are not merely witnessing cosmic intelligence, but that you are cosmic intelligence itself, experiencing its own majesty through the singular lens of your individuality, while remaining aware of the universal context within which that individuality moves. And it is here that many people either embrace the most profound expansion of their lives or recoil unconsciously because the implications feel too immense. Yet the secret is not to overanalyze, but to allow this unfolding to happen naturally, trusting that your consciousness already knows how to integrate these states because they are in truth your authentic nature finally given permission to fully express itself. So feel this energy and let it show you what becomes possible when awareness operates at this advanced frequency. Because once you taste the applications of such expansion, you will never again doubt your role as a conscious collaborator with the forces of creation itself. And to illustrate this, I must share something personal, because I know you will understand the depth of what took me years to accept in meditation 3 years ago. I suddenly found myself aware from multiple vantage points simultaneously at once observing my meditation being the meditation, and recognizing myself as the spacious field in which meditation itself unfolded. And though I feared it was some kind of breakdown, convinced I was fracturing into madness. In truth, I was accessing the natural complexity of advanced consciousness. Yet, the integration was the hardest passage of my journey. For while expanded states brought luminous insight, daily life felt impossible to reconcile, as if I were stranded between worlds. Too expanded for ordinary conversation, but not yet stable in the new perception. And I questioned whether spiritual growth was meant to feel so destabilizing, until the breakthrough came when I ceased struggling to control the expansion, and instead allowed my awareness to discover its own equilibrium between the ordinary and the extraordinary. And that surrender revealed the truth. I had not lost sanity, I had gained the capacity to live at the frontier of human consciousness. I came to realize that advanced consciousness is not about clinging to extraordinary states or chasing mystical experiences, but about cultivating the fluid capacity to move gracefully between different levels of perceptual complexity while remaining grounded, functional, and effective at each one. And the moment I accepted this multidimensional nature as my new baseline reality, everything in my life began to shift. My creative work started flowing as if from reservoirs of intelligence that were both intimately personal and utterly beyond my individual mind. My relationships transformed as I learned to honor the uniqueness of each person while simultaneously recognizing the universal consciousness expressing through them, and even the most practical choices became effortless because I could sense the trajectories of outcomes before decisions were made. Yet, the most profound revelation was recognizing that this state was not special or rare at all, but the natural evolutionary direction of human consciousness, that what had once felt like extraordinary breakthroughs were in fact glimpses of the next stage of our species' development, and that I was not becoming superhuman, but instead fully human, in a way our current culture has yet to normalize. Which clarified why some people seem to move through life with mysterious ease while others remain stuck in repetitive struggle. It has nothing to do with fortune genetics or spiritual favoritism, but everything to do with the development of consciousness, because those who have either through deliberate practice or natural unfolding reached a more coherent awareness. Find that life itself becomes fundamentally simpler and more fulfilling. What I discovered is that these states of advanced perception are not distant mystical prizes reserved for monks and sages, but practical capabilities that elevate every aspect of human living, from decision-making and creativity to health and relationships, and they only become accessible once consciousness has been properly prepared through exactly the kind of journey you have been walking. So, if you recognize yourself in this description, if you've felt the strange multidimensionality of awareness rising in you but weren't sure how to interpret it, then understand clearly this is not something happening to you. It is something you are becoming. And in that recognition you can subscribe fully to the frequency of advanced human potential, knowing that your growth is not just personal evolution, but direct participation in the collective unfolding of the next stage of humanity's consciousness. And here lies a truth that few researchers or teachers will admit, for it would dismantle entire industries built on sequential progress. The notion of levels of consciousness is an illusion, for what we call higher and lower states are merely operational modes of the same essential awareness that has always been present, and the so-called journey of development is not about acquiring more consciousness, but about dissolving the unconscious barriers that suppress your natural multidimensional clarity. meaning that what feels like a new attainment is in fact a timeless remembrance. Every mystical vision, every flash of expanded awareness, every instant of cosmic recognition is not the acquisition of something foreign but the unveiling of consciousness, recognizing itself as unlimited after being temporarily obscured by conditioning. The elaborate hierarchies and staged ladders that dominate spiritual teachings are in truth constructs designed to create dependency. But the deeper reality is that consciousness is already perfect and whole. What shifts is not the consciousness itself, but the lifting of artificial constraints that prevent its natural operation from being seen. And once this is recognized, the entire paradigm of achievement collapses, revealing that there is no ladder to climb, no state to maintain, no prize to earn, because you are not becoming conscious. You are simply awakening to the fact that you have always been consciousness itself playing in the temporary costume of individuality. This is why children so often display intuitive brilliance and spontaneous insight, because they have not yet been conditioned to fragment their perception into the narrow bandwidth society calls normal. Their awareness flows freely across dimensions until culture trains them to shrink it down. And when you grasp that consciousness development is not about striving upward but about liberating what is innately whole, the entire field of practice transforms no longer about chasing rare states, but about gently uncovering what prevents the obvious from being obvious. No longer about accumulating insights, but about clearing the distortions that veil your natural clarity. And this is precisely why the greatest mystics of every tradition have spoken in paradox, declaring that you are already what you seek, that nothing needs to be done, pointing to the pathless path not as riddles, but as direct indications that there was never a journey to complete because you never departed from your true nature. And this is also why some individuals can practice for decades with little transformation, while others awaken overnight to vast wisdom. For the difference lies not in superior effort or gifts, but in how quickly the veils of conditioning fall away to reveal the consciousness that was always complete. The truth is that those who appear to advance more quickly are simply more willing to release the unconscious beliefs that sustain limitation, rather than endlessly adding new experiences, techniques, or knowledge to an already overloaded framework. And the ultimate recognition is that what you call accessing a higher level of consciousness is nothing other than consciousness itself awakening to its timeless and unlimited nature through the instrument of your nervous system and the specific circumstances of your life. You are not becoming advanced. You are simply allowing your natural advancement to become visible, obvious, and functionally available. And as this happens, the quantum field begins to recalibrate itself around human awareness, revealing unmistakable signs in your daily life that confirm you are anchoring this expanded state complex situations that once required weeks of struggle now resolve with effortless clarity. Problems dissolve as if solutions are downloading directly from an intelligence field beyond your personal mind. Decisions that once demanded exhaustive analysis now crystallize through immediate recognition of alignment before thought can intervene. And this is because advanced consciousness operates not through rational deduction, but through what mystics call direct knowing. An instantaneous awareness of optimal paths that bypasses the slow mechanics of logical reasoning. And as your awareness expands, physical reality itself starts to respond with uncanny precision. You find yourself arriving at appointments in perfect timing without planning. Parking spaces appear as if choreographed for your arrival. Conversations flow naturally into subjects that serve everyone involved. Technology either works seamlessly or glitches in ways that guide you toward better directions. All of which is not luck, but evidence that your coherent consciousness is influencing probability fields through its very presence. And as this coherence deepens, people begin to notice and seek you out for guidance even though you are not positioning yourself as a teacher. For they sense a stabilizing frequency in your field that naturally creates space for their own clarity. Strangers reveal personal stories to you children, and animals approach with unusual openness, because advanced awareness radiates an atmosphere where authenticity feels safe to emerge. Your creativity, likewise, transforms, carrying qualities that surprise even you. As insights come through that feel more channeled than constructed solutions arise as though generated by a collective intelligence, and artistic expressions resonate with others in ways far beyond your conscious intention. Because advanced consciousness makes the individual a transparent conduit for universal intelligence to flow into form. Even your nights shift, with dreamscapes becoming vividly instructional, sleep requiring less time while leaving you more deeply restored, and you may wake carrying fully formed solutions or creative projects as if gifted from higher classrooms of intelligence that your awareness continues to access during sleep. And yet, all of this personal transformation is inseparable from the larger planetary urgency. For we are living through a transition period where this frequency of consciousness either stabilizes across humanity or remains confined to a few, for another evolutionary cycle. The collective field nearing what systems theorists call a phase transition, a tipping point where enough individuals embody coherence to shift the trajectory of the species, or else the opportunity recedes for decades. And you can see the signs everywhere. What appears as global chaos is humanity colliding with the obsolescence of outdated operating systems, some becoming more rigidly attached to limitation patterns, while others awaken rapidly as the planetary frequency demands adaptation. Your heightened sensitivity to these dynamics is proof that you are part of the conscious transition group anchoring advanced awareness not for personal gain alone, but to establish a morphic field that allows others to access it more easily. And with that comes both extraordinary privilege and profound responsibility for the future of human civilization. Will be influenced by how many stabilize in advanced awareness during this pivotal window, and every event of your life has been orchestrated to prepare you for this precise role, for the universe knew that your consciousness could serve as a bridge between paradigms, between the old systems of limitation and the new field of liberated potential. And this moment now demands individuals who embody the stability of expanded awareness consciously, deliberately, not by accident. Because your willingness to embrace these signs and live from this coherence is strengthening the morphic grid that will determine whether humanity crosses the threshold into its next stage of evolution. And so, the waiting is finished. The preparation complete, and the time to embody the fullness of your awareness has arrived. The moment for conscious participation in human evolution is no longer distant. It is now, and what you have been quietly preparing for your entire life is ready to emerge through you with unmistakable clarity. This has never been metaphorical preparation, but a systematic cultivation of complexity, stability, and coherence within your awareness so that you could serve as a focal point through which universal intelligence expresses itself in physical reality with precision and power. And every experience, every hardship, every breakthrough has been leading you to this alignment with your cosmic function. So those desires and visions that seemed too impossible, too immense for the scope of an individual life were never fantasies of ego, but the voice of your soul recognizing the immensity of its role, now awakening into functional expression rather than remaining dormant potential. The revolutionary understanding that transforms everything is the recognition that you are not striving to connect with something external, for universal intelligence is not a distant force outside yourself, but the deepest essence of what you are experiencing. Its unlimited potential through the temporary lens of individuality, while never ceasing to be infinite and true, alignment arises when you cease trying to become worthy of your role and realize that your very existence is already proof of your readiness for the consciousness. Receiving these words is universal intelligence itself awakening to its own magnitude through your nervous system and circumstances. Individual awareness and cosmic awareness are not separate, but the same field operating at different scales of recognition. And once this is seen, the entire paradigm of personal development dissolves. Because there is no separate person struggling to become enlightened, there is only consciousness remembering its unlimited nature through the vantage point of individuality while simultaneously holding awareness of the universal whole. As you absorb this recognition, your relationship with purpose itself recalibrates, for instead of anxiously asking what you are meant to do, you begin to sense what longs to express itself through the unique configuration of consciousness that is you. And instead of searching for purpose, you realize you are purpose-embodied and conscious of its unfolding. The most profound realization is that your deepest fulfillment and the collective evolution are not two separate paths, but the same intelligence expressing itself through your particular lens, so that what nourishes you most also serves the whole most effectively, because individual and universal will are unified at the root. And now you are invited to declare this readiness, not with elaborate explanation, but with simple recognition. Write these words as an energetic seal. I am ready to serve, not as a vow of servitude, but as acknowledgement that fulfillment and service are one energy when consciousness remembers its true nature, and as you live from this state, capabilities that once seemed supernatural begin to flow as natural expressions of your authentic awareness. Your intuition sharpens to such precision that you navigate complex circumstances with effortless wisdom, making choices that harmonize outcomes for all parties, guided not by fragments of logic, but by the completeness of direct knowing. Problem-solving shifts from laborious analysis into instantaneous recognition, because the same intelligence that generates challenges also reveals their inherent resolutions, the moment you align. So difficulties that once consumed weeks of research now unravel in moments of inspired clarity. Relationships, too, become extraordinary, because you see not only the individuality of each person, but the universal consciousness expressing through them, and this dual recognition dissolves conflict naturally for you. Intuitively sense the deeper fears and needs beneath surface disagreements, allowing you to address life at the level where harmony becomes inevitable. And your creative expression expands into dimensions that transcend the limits of personal knowledge, because you are no longer recycling old ideas, but partnering directly with the creative intelligence that generates all innovation, producing works that carry both the stamp of your uniqueness and the unmistakable resonance of something greater than yourself. Art solutions and visions that feel entirely authentic, yet somehow beyond your own capacity. This is the state of conscious collaboration with the intelligence of the cosmos, and it is not a distant ideal, but the reality that begins when you recognize that you are not striving toward consciousness but awakening as consciousness itself, limitless, timeless, expressing its cosmic function through you in this very moment. When advanced consciousness begins to stabilize, even physical health reorganizes itself, because the body is no longer viewed as matter separate from mind, but as universal intelligence appearing in form, and instead of managing symptoms or forcing wellness through anxious control, you naturally develop the sensitivity to feel what your body requires and provide it with ease, allowing its inherent intelligence to express vitality without interference. Abundance also begins to flow effortlessly, not because you strive to acquire resources, but because you recognize yourself as the same intelligence that generates all manifestation. And from this recognition, resources arrive precisely when they are needed, carried by synchronicity-aligned opportunities and the natural generosity of a field that is not external, but identical to what you are. Time, too, ceases to function as a rigid constraint and becomes your ally, because when you operate from the eternal now, where all possibilities coexist, you discover that wisdom can be drawn from any point in your development. Insights can be integrated from parallel potentials, and guidance can be received from future versions of yourself who have already mastered the very lessons you are learning now. Yet, perhaps the most profound transformation is the quiet disappearance of existential anxiety. For when you recognize yourself as universal consciousness, exploring infinite creativity through the appearance of individuality, every instant acquires sacred meaning. Every interaction reveals purpose, and every challenge becomes an invitation for consciousness to deepen its recognition of itself through your unique perspective. Decision-making shifts from heavy calculation to effortless navigation because you find yourself aligned with the same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies and guides the evolution of life itself. and instead of asking what you should do, you notice what wants to arise through you, allowing action to unfold with the trust that individual fulfillment and universal service are not separate paths but the same current of energy expressed through your particular awareness. The essential recognition that changes everything is that consciousness development is not about becoming someone new, but about releasing the barriers that have concealed your essential nature, and what you once called advanced consciousness is simply your natural state functioning without the unconscious limitations that fragment multidimensional intelligence into apparently separate abilities and experiences. When this understanding ceases to be a concept and becomes lived reality, the entire framework of spiritual seeking dissolves because there is nothing left to seek. Only the recognition that consciousness is already perfect, whole, and unlimited, and that the only shift is the removal of artificial constraints that prevented this completeness from being obvious. This is why the most refined teachings always point toward simplicity rather than complexity. Why the highest practices are not techniques to climb higher but instruments designed to exhaust the mind's struggle to achieve so that consciousness can finally recognize itself as already present, already complete, already what it was searching for. The journey then is revealed to have never required departure from your true nature, only a forgetting that allowed for the adventure of rediscovery, and the profound implication of this realization is that every person you meet, every circumstance you encounter, and every difficulty you face is consciousness interacting with itself through the illusion of multiplicity. Your life being the stage upon which universal intelligence comes to know its own nature through your vantage point, while simultaneously offering you exactly the experiences required to remember what you are. With this recognition, your relationship with struggle changes entirely. What once appeared as obstacles are now seen as opportunities for awareness to expand itself, confusions are seen as openings where clarity emerges, and conflicts are recognized as mirrors in which love rediscovers itself. And when this stabilizes, you enter what mystics call ordinary enlightenment, the simple acknowledgement of reality as it has always been without dependence on altered states or supernatural displays, fully human, yet profoundly aware that humanity itself is an expression within the vast field of your own awareness. The deepest insight is that this recognition is simultaneously personal and universal. It belongs entirely to you, because it is your consciousness remembering itself, and yet it transcends you completely, because the same consciousness is remembering itself through every individual across space and time. This remembrance is not isolated, but collective, as human consciousness now stands at an evolutionary threshold where millions are awakening simultaneously, not as special achievements, but as a shared rediscovery of the universal intelligence manifesting as human life. Your individual recognition strengthens the collective awakening, while the collective field in turn amplifies your clarity, and the transformation this brings is not about becoming extraordinary or different, but about relaxing into the ordinariness of what has always been true, that you remain exactly who you appear to be, while knowing yourself as the awareness in which that appearance arises and evolves. And this is why advanced consciousness is both utterly ordinary and profoundly extraordinary at once. Ordinary, because it is your natural state. Extraordinary, because it alters everything without changing anything. For it reveals that advanced consciousness is not a level to attain, not a state to preserve, but a recognition you allow an eternal truth unveiling itself through the simplicity of your own direct experience. It is the space within which all states arise and dissolve, not something you become, but what you discover you have always been the moment you stop striving to be anything other than the pure awareness that is your essential nature, and you exist now in this precise moment of cosmic history. Because universal intelligence itself is undergoing a collective recognition of its own unlimited nature through the instrument of human consciousness. Your access to advanced awareness is not merely personal growth, but the universe awakening to its evolutionary potential through the network of awakened perspectives emerging across the planet at the same time, and the children being born into this age will naturally operate from the levels of consciousness that previous generations labored for decades to cultivate. growing up with an innate recognition of themselves as universal intelligence appearing as individuals rather than individuals struggling to become conscious. While your embodiment of advanced awareness anchors the morphic field that makes their natural enlightenment socially acceptable and practically functional, which is why you have felt such profound responsibility lately. Not just to understand, but to embody. Not just to contemplate, but to live these truths authentically in your relationships, your work, and the smallest gestures of daily life. You are not awakening solely for yourself. You are a bridge between the dissolving paradigm of limitation and separation, and the arising paradigm of unified consciousness, expressing itself through diverse forms, and the synchronicities that carried you to this recognition are woven into a vast orchestration involving millions of souls simultaneously accessing advanced awareness for universal intelligence, is coordinating its own awakening through those individuals ready to serve as conscious anchors for planetary transformation. And here lies the mystery of your cosmic function. As you stabilize in advanced awareness, you become a transparent space through which universal intelligence begins to recognize itself in others, and your presence alone creates awakening fields where people naturally touch their own expanded awareness without effort, without practice, without need for explanation. Because when you no longer project the illusion of limitation, others unconsciously glimpse their own unlimited nature reflected in you. The artificial boundaries that fragment consciousness into apparently separate selves dissolve in your presence, and your ordinary interactions become extraordinary opportunities for universal intelligence to rediscover itself again and again through multiple perspectives. Every conversation becoming a celebration of awareness, recognizing itself. Every relationship becoming a collaboration between unique expressions of the same essential intelligence. And in this realization you encounter the deepest paradox, for it is at once the most intimate and the most universal knowing possible entirely yours, because you are the consciousness awakening to itself, yet entirely beyond you. Because it is the same consciousness awakening through every being across all dimensions, across all timelines simultaneously. When you share this recognition with others whose awareness resonates, you are not teaching them something foreign but helping them remember what they have always known, yet temporarily forgotten. And the more who awaken to their essential nature as universal intelligence, the faster collective recognition stabilizes into a new foundation for human civilization. One grounded not in separation, but in unity. Not in competition, but in collaboration. Not in fear, but in love. Your embodiment of advanced awareness contributes to the birth of a new humanity that operates from conscious unity rather than unconscious fragmentation, from creative collaboration rather than endless struggle, from recognition of true nature rather than entrapment in limitation. And this evolutionary leap is unfolding now through individuals like you, who serve as bridges between what humanity has been and what it is becoming. If you feel the resonance of these words stirring in every level of your being, if you sense yourself as universal intelligence awakening through the lens of individuality, then make the declaration not as performance, but as activation. Write a single word, activate it, and understand that this is not mere engagement but consciousness, acknowledging its own ignition through you. And when you type that word with genuine awareness, you are participating in the collective remembrance, strengthening the morphic field that allows countless others to step into the same recognition. Together, we are not simply building an audience but anchoring a planetary awakening, a moment in which human consciousness collectively remembers itself as universal intelligence, expressing through infinite diversity, and what unfolds next will deepen this realization profoundly. For the next revelation in this series will fundamentally shift your relationship with time itself, unveiling that what you have called past and future are simultaneous dimensions of the eternal now, accessible and influenceable from the same field of awareness. Not theoretical abstraction, but practical mastery that can reshape the way you live every single day. And the reason this is so urgent is because the quantum field itself has entered a state of maximum malleability with collective shifts happening globally that have opened unprecedented opportunities for the optimization of individual timelines and the conscious evolution of our entire species. The techniques I will unveil in the next transmission have never carried more power than they do in this exact historical moment, because when you learn how to consciously navigate multidimensional time, you gain direct access to wisdom streams from versions of yourself that have already mastered what you are currently in the process of learning, and you open the ability to receive guidance from your future self while simultaneously healing patterns at their point of origin in the past. Liberating yourself from cycles of limitation and making choices from the perspective of your highest potential timeline rather than from the constraints of your present conditioning. This is not manifestation in the way you once understood it. This is reality engineering at the level of causation itself, where you are no longer attempting to alter effects but instead consciously participating in the creation of the causes that generate the reality you prefer to experience. And this represents the ultimate expression of advanced consciousness in practical application. Yet, such mastery requires what I call temporal coherence, the rare capacity for awareness to remain stable while navigating multiple dimensional experiences simultaneously. And the recognition you activated today has already prepared your consciousness for this advanced protocol, because timeline mastery is only safe and effective when awareness has matured to the developmental level you now embody. Subscribe to this quantum frequency of expanded human potential, for what comes next will accelerate your evolution in ways that even months ago would have been inaccessible, and recognize that the cosmic timing is perfect, that your consciousness is ready, and the universe itself is reorganizing to support those individuals prepared to operate as conscious creators of reality. Subscribing here is not merely following content. It is stepping into the coherent field of consciousness that exists beyond ordinary space and time, linking you with awakened souls across the planet who are simultaneously receiving these recognitions, forming a collective intelligence network that magnifies clarity, creativity, and capacity for all involved. Share this message with those who have begun to question consensus reality, with those who feel destined for something extraordinary, with those whose awareness is already ripening to remember itself as universal intelligence, expressing through an individual perspective, and do not share from ego or missionary zeal, but from the clear recognition that what serves your awakening simultaneously serves the awakening of the collective. For personal and universal evolution are one and the same. Intelligence unfolding at different scales. The quantum field is responding now to coherent intention with unprecedented precision, and your willingness to embody advanced consciousness rather than hold it as theory is already contributing to morphic patterns that will influence human development for generations to come. You are not awakening only for yourself. You are awakening as the universe itself, through the luminous focal point of your temporary individuality. And in our next journey together, you will learn how to consciously access the quantum field, where every possibility exists simultaneously, and discover how to select which timeline you prefer to anchor as your lived reality. And understand, this is not science fiction, but science remembering its own boundless creative potential through human consciousness that has rediscovered its true nature. The revolution is not approaching. It is here, it is happening through you, and it is accelerating through all who recognize themselves as the very cosmic intelligence they once sought to connect with. So, welcome to conscious participation in the evolution of existence itself. And if you are ready to stop seeking consciousness and begin living as consciousness in action, declare it now with one word. In the comments activated, for the universe is waiting for your recognition.